And the first order of business is the public hearing, 2021 NAA-TCP program. Sabrina, do we have anyone signed up to speak to it?
We do not.
Did you receive any letters or otherwise to this effect?
I did not.
Okay. All right, seeing no one is signed up nor sent letters, we will now close the public hearing and move on to roll call. Mr. Sirenides.
Present.
Mrs. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Okay. And let the record show Ms. Young and Ms. Shanahan have yet to join us, but perhaps will be joining us shortly. And I, John Kites, the chairman, am also present. Anyone signed up for public participation? Sabrina?
Not right now, but let me just check. Give me 1 second because the link is being weird.
You think that, I mean, I'm assuming obviously, Sabrina, the link that was posted on the website was the original one that we had that.
Yeah,
difficulty
that's why I'm trying to, number one, change it, but number two, I don't know. Let me see.
Let the
I
record
put
show
the link in there
Ms.
now.
Shanahan has joined us. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I have a really unstable internet connection, so I may get lost, but hang in.
Yeah, nobody's still here, John, but the page is updated, so
Okay, I mean, out of respect to the public, if someone does chime in, there are no objections. We'll allow them time to speak as we move through this meeting due to the technical difficulties we've experienced. Okay, moving on to a little administration item, and that's the approval of the minutes of May 6, 2021. Anybody have any corrections to those minutes? No? Okay, would someone like to move those?
Mr. Chairman, can the record reflect that Councilman David Huvelman was also in attendance at that meeting?
Okay. Let the record show Ms. Huvelman was at the May 6th meeting, also attending obviously this meeting as well. Okay, would someone like to move those minutes? Thank you, Mr. Livingston. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. And that looks to be unanimous. Great. Okay, moving on to a little bit of old business, item 3A1, and that's an update on the industrial zone public hearing. I believe, Mr. Kleppen, you're going to be speaking to that.
Correct. Hopefully you received a memo with some backup material related to the request. As you know, we have a firm, UTIL, out of Boston that's working on the industrial zone study. And we're at the point where the draft report is out, and we're starting to examine that, make some edits before it goes back out to the committee that's overseeing the study. I expect they'll get that probably by the end of the month, and then it'll be out for public consumption sometime in July. So they're actually making really good progress. One of the things that we realized as we got into the beginning stages of this was that the waterfront industrial areas were a little more complex than we had initially anticipated. And the best decision we made was to decide to maybe look at that as a separate study or as an addendum to the study. So, as we started looking at the budgets to get towards the year end with all the the availability of additional funds because of staff departures, we decided to use the same firm because we really like working with them. Thought it would be less expensive and more expedient to keep the same firm on board and just amend the scope of work a little bit to add the more issues related to the waterfront to the study. So the idea is that the industrial zone study will proceed and that plan will go forward through the process so we can act on the recommendations within that plan and then carry out a kind of addendum to the plan, which really focuses on the industrial waterfront properties. So we worked with UTIL to put that scope of work together, which I believe you saw, and they're ready to go, and we'll probably be starting on that, assuming this goes forward within the next month or so.
Well, that will be kind of a subset of your study.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Steve, thank you for this, and also Jessica for working on this. I know it's the next item, but just saying that it's we have a lot of opportunity in our industrial waterfront, and I think this study will hopefully pick up on all that opportunity and give us some good recommendations. Anybody have any questions for Steve in regards to the industrial zone public hearing and how that's going to progress before we move to the next item? No? Okay. All right. Guess we'll move on to your next item, Steve, and that's to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to the agreement by and between the city of Norwalk for Utile Inc. in the amount not to exceed $60,000 for the additional scope of services to conduct the Norwalk Urban Waterfront Land Use Plan. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Steve, I know you kind of touched on it, but you want to expand?
So I probably should have looked at your agenda a little closer. So I actually, my kind of little speech was related to the second item more so than the first. So I'll go backwards and maybe just confuse you even more. So we did have the public hearing a couple of months ago related to the waterfront study. It was via Zoom, and actually we did some breakout rooms that went really well. If there's specific questions on that, I'm happy to share the draft plan with you in a few weeks once it's been a little further vetted. But as I mentioned, this request is related to the additional funds for the waterfront study. So if you have questions, any further questions on that, I'm happy to take them.
Will Steve, will that progress at the same rate as the industrial zone study as far as the information we're going to get back?
Yeah, I think it'll probably take a little less time because it's just, I think it'll be, so the industrial zone study, I'm hoping that, it'll be in the kind of the adoption phase in the fall. So we have to go back and amend the POCD. So that'll come back to you guys, similar to what we did with the East Norwalk TOD plan. So I anticipate doing that in the fall. And while that's going on, that study, the waterfront portion will be going on. And that's probably about 8 to 10 months from once they actually begin the work.
So Steve, if I
Questions from the-
could.
Tom?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So Steve, I don't mean this as criticism. How come we're doing this separate study now? I mean, did you find something in the review that prompted it in particular? Because the waterfront's the waterfront, right?
Right. There's a lot of, as I mentioned, there's a lot more complexities with the waterfront, and we need to look at the water. I'm going to misphrase this, but you need to look at like the water depths and see what's possible in terms of getting what types of boats into what areas, what's possible in terms of job growth in the area, what kind of marine related jobs are viable for a city like Norwalk. How do you meet those needs and also meet the need and desire for people to connect to the waterfront, because that's a big theme throughout the citywide plan, and that's expressed a lot in some of the other studies that waterfront access is a big thing. There's also the idea that we really need to protect the waterfront in terms of water quality purposes. So how do these all connect? So those are kind of some of the big picture things. And also you have to think about, sea level rise and how that's going to impact these properties in the future. How does that all kind of fit together? So it was a little more complex than some of the other just specific industrial zones that we were looking at.
No, I get that, and I appreciate that. I'm just thinking because that hasn't really changed since you started. Did you anticipate doing this all along, getting somebody else in to look at this?
No, initially we wanted to do it as one package, and in my mistake, we probably should have allocated more funds than we did at the beginning. And it's just, like I said, as we started looking at the various issues about, the processes, who's involved with approvals related to the waterfront, it just gets more complex.
Okay.
So we just felt it was better to handle it separately.
Got it. Well, I think it's a great idea because I'm all in favor of that, enhanced waterfront access and all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to assume you're talking there. Yeah, I just wanted to express that, I'm thrilled that this is, we're at a point where this can move forward, because I think as it's really mentioned, the waterfront is underutilized, but it's tricky because we do have to protect the water in the harbor, but so much can be activated there in terms of jobs and and just, access for the community to the water. So I'm really thrilled that we're here.
And to add to that, I think there's always been a need for a plan, especially areas, Water Street and other areas, surrounding basically our waterfront. So I think putting this in place and is exciting. And Steve, I'm looking forward to the updates that the committee will be receiving in the coming months. Any other questions? No? Okay.
If I might, one thing, it's a completely unrelated topic. I did promise that I would come back to you guys and go over the zoning regulations that for the East Norwalk TOD, once they got further refined, we're pretty close on that. I don't know if you guys meet in July with we're probably up close to, the July 4th holiday. If you have a meeting, if it's not in July, if you meet in August, if you have room on your agenda, I'd like to come back and review that with you at that time.
I believe we will be having a meeting. I think it falls on the 1st, actually. So if there's no objections from the committee, or please let me know. You don't have to let me know now if there's any conflict in your schedules surrounding the holiday. Keep me posted. And Steve, I was also going to follow up with you in regards to maybe at the next meeting, giving us an update on projects and where they are and their status, what's been going on. That's always helpful information to kind of have an idea of how these projects are proceeding and any new applications on the horizon.
Sure, certainly.
Appreciate it. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, so Barbara, I believe you moved that item, so I will now call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand to signify yes. And I'm also a yes. That is unanimous. Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve.
Okay.
All right, moving on to Mr. Bandoli. That's item 1, advance the recommended application to the Common Council for approval at the June 8th, 2021 council meeting at their inclusion of the 2021 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Program. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Mr. Serenides. Brian, you just give us a summary of this and a little background, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So what you have before you is a request to approve the 2021 applications for referral to the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services for inclusion in the 2021 Neighborhood Assistance Act program. This is a program we administer on behalf of the city, which provides corporation business tax credit to businesses that make cash contributions to qualifying community programs. So it involves an application process. We solicited applications. We received 13 back. And effectively, it's a little bit interesting because this is not a Norwalk grants program and the funds really aren't controlled by the city of Norwalk. Rather, the Planning Committee and Common Council need to just acknowledge the existence of the nonprofits and their proposed services. And then the actual application review and award of tax credits is actually carried out by the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Mr. Livingston?
Yeah, thank you. Brian, I see that people ask for different amounts, and I guess they can ask for up to 150,000. How are those amounts determined? Do they have specific programs they're trying to fund?
Yeah, it's based on their need, and I think also based on how many credits they think they could sort of sell effectively. They have to find investors for these credits, so they get an allocation, and then they have to go fundraise by selling these credits off. So it's typically related to their, operation budgets and the like.
Got it. Okay. I know we've done this in the past. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Brian. I will now call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand to signify yes. And I'm also a yes, unanimous. Great. All right, Brian. I'll see you at Tuesday's council meeting.
All right. Sounds good. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you, buddy. Take care. Okay, next up, we have item C under Transportation, Parking, and Mobility, and that's item 1, authorizes Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an agreement with the Banassi Hangen Bruslin, Inc. for the design of roundabout on Gregory Boulevard at 5th Street for an amount not to exceed $10,600, account number noted. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Jessica, will you be speaking to that, or Mike?
I could take that, Chairman.
Okay, Mike, Mr. Yosak, please.
Basically, what we're doing is the the roundabout at Gregory and Fifth Street, we'd done some work there a few months ago, temporarily. And what we like to do now is take a look at a more permanent solution there. It's kind of unfriendly to bikers and pedestrians. And it doesn't operate as a true roundabout. There's some conflicts of movement down there, so we like to have a consultant come in and prepare a couple concept plans that the committee and the public could review and weigh in on.
Okay, will the ultimate decision be to this council to make, or will it be the traffic authority? Both agencies would have to weigh in on it. The traffic authority and council would have to, approve any construction funds or anything that would, have to be done down there.
And
when do you-
Chairman, the traffic authorities looked at this several times already. We looked at, there was some concern with Gregory and Fifth a while back, and the team implemented some signs. We rejigged those signs a little bit. So it's been to traffic authority probably 2 or 3 times in discussion. And the last time we left traffic authority, it was determined to look a little bit closer at Gregory to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place that's required there for the safety of pedestrians and the traffic. So definitely the traffic authority has been apprised of the topic and are supportive. I can't speak for them, but definitely the last conversation we had, they asked us to look a little bit more in detail on this particular intersection.
Okay, will the planning committee have the opportunity to chime in on the ideas and the concepts before they're implemented by and approved by the traffic authority?
Yeah, so we can when we do the design, we can bring the design back to planning and you guys can have a look at it if you'd like to do that. Absolutely.
That would be great. I mean, not just because I represent this district, but I know there's a lot of talk. And Mike, I appreciate you taking the time the other day to have a conversation about this. And I really hope that we follow through with getting the public engaged and informed about what's being proposed once we get to that point.
I think that's very, very important that the public be involved.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay, Mike, real quick. So when are we going to possibly see these concepts come back?
Probably would take like about, once the contract's executed and everything like that, probably about two to 3 months.
Okay. We look forward to seeing what comes back. All right, if there are no other questions, I will now call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify yes. And I'm also yes, unanimous. Great, thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
All right, next up, item C2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement of capital funds in the amount of $50,000 to the Norwalk River Valley Trail, Inc., a 501c, to assist in the construction of the Will Walk section of the Norwalk River Valley Trail, account number noted. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Lisa. Ms. Shanahan. Jess, Mike.
Yeah. So Mike's actually going to present, but we wanted to disclose that Mike is actually on the board of the NRVT as a volunteer capacity. And of course, he's presenting this project as a City of Norwalk staff member. So I just wanted to disclose that for Mike. But, Mike's done a really great job. Mike's going to present it, but I want to take the opportunity just to say thanks to Mike for working on the NRVT, because he's done a really great job over the last number of years in helping really establish the NRVT here in Norwalk. And he's worked really closely with Beth Merrill and Charlie Tanny to be able to do that. And so I'm really happy that Mike joined us tonight to be able to present this, because I think he's had a really big hand in it here in the city.
Thanks, Jess. A few years ago, the town of Wilton had received a grant from DEP for funding a trail up on the Wilton Norwalk border. So part of it would be from Grist Mill up to the town line and into Wilton. That's the reason for the Will Walk name. It was for $1 million and some change. And there was a 20% match as part of that grant application. So the town of Wilton and the town of Norwalk agreed to because the projects were both towns, they agreed to, do the project. And the NRVT stepped in to raise the funds to do the matching, the 20% match, because the towns did not have the city or Wilton did not have the funds at the time. To make a long story short, the NRVT raised most of the funds to do this work. But in the meantime, some of the costs have went up, especially in this last year. We've seen the price of lumber and asphalt and everything has gone up quite a bit. So they were a little bit short on funds, so they had to cut back on the scope of the project a little bit. But we do have $50,000 in capital funds, which would go a long way to creating a piece of this trail in Norwalk. So the NRVT kind of asked if the city would, put that money forward to help do the trail at this time. I don't know if you have any other questions regarding, I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, so is this covering a shortfall due to increased cost, or is it because Wilton didn't come through with their share, or both?
It's more to increase the shortfall of cost here. The NRVT raised quite a bit of money in excess of the 20% match, but the cost and both the design cost and the construction cost have kind of expanded over over the 3-year period.
Is
And
Wilton contributing anymore?
I can't speak of what Wilton is doing, but this part would be dedicated for the portion in Norwalk.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Like none of those costs would reflect planning for a part of the trail in Wilton. It'd be entirely in the Norwalk boundaries.
We could make that. We could make that stipulation. That would be the Norwalk section of the trail.
Okay.
We actually have a meeting with Charlie and Beth tomorrow afternoon, so that can be one of the stipulations we can articulate to them.
Mike, when do you expect this project to be completed?
It's currently under construction now. So if they were able to get this funds, it would be finished this year.
There a portion of it, I mean, do we piggyback off the city's paving contract to reap the benefits of that?
This section wouldn't be paved. This would be stone dust.
So no asphalt walkway, nothing along those lines?
No, it would either be like a wood boardwalk if it went over wetlands or environmentally sensitive areas or stone dust. And
I mean, as a contractor, I can tell you a lot of jobs have been put on hold, obviously, because to your point before, material costs have over doubled in the last 6 months, where people are willing to wait because, I mean, they're projected to go down later in the season. I don't know if that's something that you've thought about, or not just specifically to this, but other projects that may require absorbing that increase in material costs.
They've been getting extensions on the grant funds, so they're kind of at the end of the extension period. A lot of the wood has been donated by one of the sponsors of the trail up in Wilton, so they've been able to save some on that cost, which was
That's great.
pretty good.
All right. Any other questions? No. Okay. I will now call for a vote. I believe Ms. Shanahan moved this item. And all in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. I'm also yes, unanimous. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
That looks like we covered it. If there's nothing else, I want to thank you all for joining us earlier. You can get on with your nights. And There, like I said, nothing else. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Lisa. All in favor? Great, unanimous. All right, thank you, everyone. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Night.
All right.
Good night.